Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another World Explorer podcast. This is the podcast where we take a random prompt and create an entire world around it. My name is Casey, and as always, I'm joined with our prompt master, Isaac.
Yo! I had no better intro there.
So
Okay.
what's our prompt master?
So I've decided that we should go back to something that we haven't done in a while. Something very sort of classical that you see in a lot of fantasy world building, and that is floating islands. It's floating islands in the sky. Yeah, we've done a bunch of worlds in the past with floating islands in the sky, but we tried to sort of step away from that because we kept on doing it, and the worlds weren't as unique. We tried to make each one its own distinct world, but I kind of want to go back to it. Rather than putting some sort of starting off with a unique twist idea, I wanted to try and make a world that is just floating islands, and then world build that. Like that is the base, is floating islands.
Yeah. So is it just for floating islands, or is there a mainland below it?
I'm thinking just floating islands. We've done enough with mainlands below them. We're doing this entire world is nothing but floating islands.
So we have a gaseous planet, which lands mass are floating islands inside of it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
cool.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only way I could think of, like, floating. It's like a Saturn, but if the rings were inside the planet.
I guess if you want to put it that way, sure.
I mean, that's what a world with floating islands looks like.
I mean, I imagined it as, a bunch of just, floating islands surrounded by clouds, and I guess you could say that's a gaseous planet where it's just clouds everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay,
so live on the tardigrades.
So my immediate question about this place is, how does day and night work? Because if there's no landmass above or below or beside you or anything, there's just the one landmass that is the island itself and nothing below that. When the sun sets, it never goes underneath any actual massive landmass below you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no day or night in this world, but there is, like, you can still tell time. Because the sun still moves, and you can still track where the sun is and tell time that way. It's just, the sun's always there. But there is, like, I guess a distance thing, because as we know, it gets colder at night because the sun is farther away. It's less about, it's a bit less about having, like, land masses blocking it, and a bit more like there's more distance. So you'll still have, like, chilly nights, so temperature changes will happen still. And the sun will still be moving.
Okay.
And then that way you can tell time. It's just always day, and the light never changes.
Okay, I actually have a question about this. We're trying to base this off of, our world and understanding of the sun orbiting a planet or vice versa or whatever. But I'm just thinking, we've got a world of floating islands in the clouds. Why do we have to say this needs to be on a planet, and why does the sun need to orbit it? Why don't we make the sun something different, or give ourselves a different form of day and night? Maybe not
like a light switch.
Maybe like a light switch. Maybe, maybe instead of say a sun that orbits a planet, what if there was I don't know, like a ring of fire that just was around the planet? Maybe.
That sounds dangerous.
It could be dangerous. I mean, this is where you add in stuff in the world. This is where my mind goes when I'm world building. We are building. I wanted to build a fantastical world today, something that wasn't necessarily based around like one particular item, but I wanted to throw in a bunch of fun fantasy elements that you don't normally see. Something unique, something that's truly unique and stand out. Floating islands.
I mean, I find
a light switch
idea interesting. like the idea that the sun never moves, it's always there, like the planet doesn't rotate, but like something every whatever timeline we want to go with just turns the sky off.
Yeah, I just got to figure out what would turn an entire sky off so
I mean,
instantaneously.
it could just be something that blocks it. It could even be a creature.
Yeah, we could have day and night operated by a living creature. Uh,
Well, I'm thinking like the sun's still a thing, and it's still
ooh,
like heating up the planet as normal, but this creature is able to like block out the sun.
I just thought of an idea. What if there was
Yeah.
no sun, but rather the creature, or rather multiple creatures, a flock of these creatures were the sun, and during the day they would wake up, they come up, they start flying over the island, and they emit light and energy and heat.
Okay.
But when they go, but when nightfall comes, after about 12 hours, they act sort of like by clockwork on their own. They just get tired after staying awake, so they just lower themselves down onto the ground. They go to sleep, and they stop emitting light. They recharge for the next day.
Okay. That could be. That's a interesting creature.
Again, we're going
And
unique and very fantastical
yeah,
today. This was the plan.
yeah. I just so if they're emitting enough heat to like keep the planet warm, how does that work?
Um, Body heat. I don't know. We could
I mean, obviously.
we could okay. So perhaps there's some sort of a magical property.
Cool. Okay. Okay. Maybe it's like they're able. They kind of act like plants in a way, and that they can take the air of the planet and turn it into heat. So they're eating, and as they're creating energy for themselves, they're creating enough excess energy to warm up the planet.
Yeah, I like that idea.
It's simple, but sometimes simple solutions are best.
Now, what do these creatures look like? Do they glow? Do they have scales?
I
Do
don't
they?
know why, but my first thought was a manatee.
I was picturing something that was sort of like a cross between a whale and a manatee.
Okay, so we were on the same
Yeah,
page.
we actually
There's just, it's
pictured
got,
like blubbery creatures for some reason.
yeah, it's a blubbery, but not like whale size. Like these are smaller in my brain for some reason.
Yeah, and I imagine it having whiskers.
Yeah,
I mean, I figured it would be a
I was
big
thinking
creature.
tusks.
I was thinking tusks, but I like the idea of tusks.
I was thinking tusks.
I wasn't thinking that it would be much smaller than a whale because it's a big creature that's up in the sky, and I think it needs to be able to be. I think it needs to be big to be able to emit a bunch of energy and light and stuff. There are a lot of them, but I think they still need to be big so that their energy
Okay.
and stuff can reach the land.
Yeah,
Maybe not the size of a
which
whale,
means
but
that what could get really annoying is if you have like one of these creatures that just insists on having a reverse sleep cycle for whatever reason.
yeah. I mean, I don't think that those would be
You just
that bothersome. I think that, of course, during nighttime you would have a few that fly up into the sky, but it's enough to emit a little bit of light, kind of like, say, moonlight, but it's not going to
Okay.
keep anybody awake. It's only when you get
yeah, it's when
like
they're all
a
up.
100 plus of them, like probably a few hundred, if
Yeah.
they're lighting the entire world, you get a few hundred of them flying up into the air and emitting light.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay, so that makes so we have light and we have heat and we're in like a gaseous planet, but it's breathable gas, I guess.
I also want to
Well,
say that
gas. Things have to be
do
lit.
these creatures fly via gas instead of like do they inflate themselves to float, kind of like a hot air balloon, rather
Yeah,
than
they're blubbers.
yeah, because they're blubber.
They're magically blubber.
Yeah, I'd say that like
Which makes me, I'm not gonna lie, to take it to a darker note.
of
I
course.
feel like these creatures, I have to, I'm sorry. These creatures can be hunted and they can be skinned and you can take their skin and it can be used as, it can be activated by like mechanisms that the people have learned about so they can have like indoor heating.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. If hunting
it's
was
just-
a part of this. Um, but
I think they have a good understanding that if they kill all the creatures, they all die. But, you know, at the same time, if they don't keep the population balanced, they'll die again because they'll overheat the planet. So I'm sure there's lots of regulations about these. I don't. What are we calling them? Sun manatees hunting.
I think okay. I know we're bad at names, but I feel like there needs to be an actual good name for them. Maybe we will put the name on pause and we'll come back to it later, perhaps once we've established more elements of the world that maybe they could be based off of. Like their name that their name could be based off of.
Sure. Yeah, but for now I'm gonna call them a sun manatee. So the sun manatees, they have to be, the population has to be maintained. So it's kind of like us now. We struggle a lot with deer population, in that we were overhunting them, but now we're underhunting them, and they're becoming a menace. And we cannot seem to find the balance because we screwed the balance up. So these people are very much aware that they have to keep the balance. So like if they have a year where it's way too hot out, they know they need to kill more manatees. But if they have a year that's way too cold, they know they need to stop hunting and let them repopulate.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Now the problem is that there's obviously going to be some people who hunt when they shouldn't.
Yeah.
There's going to be quite a bit of I'd say that there's going to be quite a bit of those types of people, and there's some times where maybe
but those are fun stories.
Maybe there's going to be times where the world maybe the winter's coming and it's going to be very cold, but there's not that much of a population. Anyway, actually, do seasons occur?
Are there seasons?
I don't know if there's actually
seasons.
I would say
there wouldn't be seasons in this. I think the manatees in a way control seasons. So I bet if there's like a season where the manatees hibernate, there'd definitely be winter.
What if maybe if they miscalculate and they overpopulate or they underpopulate the world, the manatees cause a change in seasons. So if there aren't enough,
but I do think that's like less. It's less than season and more like, global warming or the global ice age. That's not a season. That's a drastic shift in temperature that affects the world. So there isn't seasons in this planet, but depending on the manatee population affects what the world's weather and temperature will be like.
Yeah. Also, something else I'm wondering about these manatees. Do they have to glow yellow? Or can we have like a really pretty blend of colors? We could have like a purple and a red.
I was thinking 100 different shades of blue.
Well, that just looks like the sky.
No, it's like a Van Gogh version of the sky.
Oh yeah, I do like that.
And then you have like some light bluish yellows and some bluish reds and some bluish purples in there, but like warmer colors. But there's like a few pops of like a really light blue as well to like brighten it up. But yeah. So it's kind of reminiscent of our world, but it's very like magical.
So it's like a Van Gogh style blue glowing.
Yeah.
Is maybe a little bit of yellow.
Yeah, some yellow in there. Yeah.
I like that.
Caused by manatees.
Okay. What do these creatures sound like?
Do they have a sound? I don't. Can they sound just like a sweet wind? Like a wind that's carried.
Wind.
Okay, like a wind that's carried birdsong with it, but it's very light. Like the birdsong was a bit away, but the wind had carried it to you. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
It's like it's a light. It's not like full blown bird song in your face morning, but it's more like reminiscent of bird song. Like there's a tint of it in the sound, but it's mostly just a light whoosh sound of them flying.
I think that might be like a good sound for them to make as they are flying because of their gaseous nature to go up and down. But that's like more like a breathing sound almost.
I think but I think they're like quiet creatures. They just they tweet to each other.
I think that maybe they should be quiet as well, but I still think they should have some sort of a sound.
It's like
they should be quiet
like
for the most part.
It's like a light bird sound.
Yeah, I was thinking like my dog is quiet for the most part until she makes a sound, and then suddenly she can be loud. And I'm thinking for the most part, these creatures could be quiet. They wouldn't make much of a noise. But then if they need to communicate or if they're evading danger, they might make some sort of a noise. I imagine them, because I imagine everything with a ton of blubber sounding this way. Whale song.
Yeah.
Like, but I feel like that's too easy. Like, because the problem with coming up with a new unique sound for them is that we only have real world sounds to compare them to. It's hard to come up with a new unique sound.
I feel like it's definitely a very like peaceful sound. So I think if they're in danger, the sound they emit is still like very calming and peaceful, but to them it like ensues panic. So it might be like an idea is like to relax those who hear it, so that way when they dart off, no one's expecting it type thing. Like, it's almost a defense mechanism to make people think that, oh, they're not panicked, they're okay, we can attack them. But in reality, they've just panicked every single one of their kind and now they're fleeing.
So maybe a whistle?
But, like, it's a whistle's... In what world is a whistle relaxing?
Bird song.
Okay, that type of whistle, yeah. That's what I was saying, was bird song. Yeah.
So what shape are these creatures exactly? Are they the shape of manatees or whales or what? Because otherwise, because I want to get more specific on like what it looks like. Otherwise, it's just a flying manatee.
I mean, that's all that was in my head, was a flying, glowing manatee. Personally.
I feel like we really do need to come up with some more unique characteristics and features of it, though. What if it had a long... What if it had more like... I'm trying to think of what wouldn't look absolutely hideous.
I mean, here's if they had to
maybe
look
like
pretty.
a long, elephant-like tail?
An elephant? No, ew.
Well... you just said who says that they need to look pretty.
Yeah, and then you put that on there, and I was like, where is that, like... Because right now I have a manatee shape. And an elephant tail coming out of a manatee shape just does not work, like, at all. Like, where is that tail going? My brain is, like, trying to pin the tail on the donkey right now. Except it's just not working. Like, no place is good.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think hard of, like, what else we could do with this creature in terms of its design. Because just flying manatee, I don't think works. What if it's, what if it had, like, 6 flippers?
Okay. Yeah, I could, that I can see. I can see that better than the elephant tail. So lots of flippers. Adding those on. What if it had, like, flippers not just at the bottom, but also on the top? I don't know, like, what?
Flippers or fins?
No, I'm thinking flippers. Like, or it's almost like sails along the top and the bottom, and they all flap in the wind. Maybe you could think of it having, like, 2 rows.
It just feels kind of weird to have flippers on the top, but I could maybe see it.
It helps.
Yeah, I've just never seen a creature with flippers on the top. Like, it's unique.
Yeah.
It's just creatures usually have fins on the top.
Well, this means it can fly upside down if it wants to. Or at weird angles. It's got more movement.
Okay, and we still want tusks?
Yeah, it's gotta defend itself.
Okay, I was wondering if we wanted to replace the tusks with something like horns, maybe,
or
just something else.
No, I prefer more manatee. We've already done narwhal.
Okay,
new sea creature.
That's fair.
New sea creature. New weird sea creature, please. I like tusks. It can then attack things. You know, impale.
Now, what do they smell like?
Rain.
They smell like rain.
Like a fresh
I can't imagine these guys. For some reason, I imagine them smelling like...
Are you kidding?
Stench and smoke.
But they fly through, like, rain clouds all day. It could be like a musky rain.
Yes, but they're very gassy.
Yeah, it could be a musky rain.
They're gassy and emit heat. And so I was thinking...
A very, very
steamy,
smoke. Musky rain. Like a 90-degree weather rain. Which, if you've ever lived in a hot place like I have, you know what that smells like. It's like the smell of rain coming down, and it kind of just evaporates as it hits the pavement, and it's very foggy, and it's very dusky. I love the smell, personally.
Okay, we could have them smell like the musky
I
rain.
like the scent of musky rain. It's not everyone's cup of tea. Most
Uh,
people hate it, but I personally like it. It smells like home.
are the if they're hunting them, are these creatures edible?
I mean, this. I almost want to say like no, just because of the type. I feel like their meat could be very harmful to humans because it's got chemicals in it that turns the air around it into energy and heat. So either A, they're really cool and that you kill them and their meat's pre-cooked, or B, it kills you to eat it. And as it is, you kind of have to be careful with the skin. Either that, or it could just be that the blubber is what's causing the heat. In which case the meat would be fine, and you'd have that first situation where you can like almost cook the meat itself. Like you can take the animal, kill it, bring it down, leave it in its skin for a while, and you can come back and it starts cooking itself because its defenses, it stops. I like in my brain the blood's what keeps the inside of the creature cool, so it's pumping a blood throughout it that prevents it from cooking itself. So when after you kill the animal, it stops pumping the blood, which means that its blood would be useful too. So that could be fun as well, having like a blood that acts as a coolant. But once it stops pumping the blood through its body, it means that its skin starts heating itself up, and then it just becomes its own oven, and you could cook itself.
I think this is interesting how we're trying to create this big fantasy world and it's becoming very scientific.
I can't help it. I have a very scientific brain when I like world design. Like everything has to make sense to it. Like
Yeah, like I'm sitting here trying to like say, oh well, we don't have to. I'm sitting here like we can create this whole new system of how the very fabric of the world works by like creating a new day and night system and all of that. And then you're like, well, how does this work scientifically? And I'm like, we can rewrite the science.
But what?
We can make our.
But we don't need to. I think the idea of it having blood that cools itself down and helps keep it alive is cool. And look, I just created a creature that once you kill it, cooks itself.
Yeah, which is interesting.
And its blood is a coolant, while
unique.
its skin can be a self-heater. And to a reader who would be reading about this creature, it's still got that magic element because there's part of it's like, yeah, that wouldn't work without like actual magic or like some weird thing. But at the same time, they could be like, oh, but I could see how this might actually work scientifically, and they'll buy it more.
Yeah. I'm not like criticizing you for like going scientific. I'm just sitting here like
can't help it.
Like the intent was epic fantasy, and now it's
I tried to make wish granting narwhal scientific. Why are you confused? Like, why are you surprised by me doing this?
Fair enough.
How about we like world build something else? I think these guys they're pretty good. They're in the sky.
Okay,
I'd like to,
so how about the islands? How do they float?
Well, it's a gaseous planet. But do we want?
We're going back to the science.
I can't. Well, look, we agreed on this already. But
what if there was a? Okay, how about this?
Okay, do we want them? Do we want them like cemented wherever they are, or do we want them like flying about places? Are they more like?
I feel like they should stay nearby to each other at least somewhat. Because
No, I meant like, do they move or not?
I think that if they move, they need to be moving at about the same rate and next to each other. Otherwise, you're gonna run into a problem of like all the islands passing by each other, and if you're trying to build a bridge from one to the other. Yeah, we already built that world. That was like our second or third world?
Yeah, that was a while back. Okay, so let's have them all. They're all in place, like quotation marks, and I don't know. It's something in the air keeps them up, and that's good enough for me.
No, I'm sitting here going, okay, what magical or scientific element or whatever, preferably magical.
I mean, it's in the air. This air is magic. Like whatever atmosphere is around this planet is, for one, it's breathable to humans, but it's reacting to certain elements in weird ways. Like it's allowing those creatures to glow and like emit heat. it's allowing humans to live, and it's reacting with rock in a way to like cement it into place. I mean, it could almost be to the fact where you
I'm
can't mine rock because the air
I'm
itself is
not
solidifying it.
I'm not sure about this because the idea with the gaseous creatures, like they're acting as hot air balloons essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, they're using heat to make themselves move upward, and then they're also emitting that heat, and they're
Yeah.
getting energy. Like that one is, I don't think is a magical property of the air itself. And to say
Well,
that
I'm saying
this
like
air
that's
just
what they
the
eat
gas
though.
and everything
We
just
said that
feels.
that's what they're
But I'm just
eating.
saying
That's what they're getting
the
energy
gas in
from.
the air feels too much like a do anything button, where it's what holds the entire world together, because it just happens to affect everything in a way that happens
Oh
to
well, now
sustain
I'm too
life.
magical. Now I'm not scientific enough. You know, I think pick a lane.
Well, I don't like magic that does literally anything and everything that you need for the plot and the world and stuff
No,
to
that's
work.
fair.
Uh, so what if there was like a specific element, maybe within the islands, like maybe within the rocks or like buried underground, that are causing them to be suspended in the air? What if there was a crystal? Because we love making magic crystals
Let's
on
say
this podcast.
another magical crystal.
Okay.
Well,
What
okay,
about a
so
magic?
I figured maybe we need another animal.
Okay.
So like an animal that lives in the ground, inside like these islands, and their ability is to keep the rocks together and like floating in the air somehow. Maybe it's just something like their saliva or their feces mixing with the rocks allows it to float and stay steady. So this is another creature that people have to keep the population maintained of.
I'm trying to imagine a creature's saliva or something just suspending a rock in the air. Like, I get that you could say magic, therefore it happens, but I'm. It's just the idea of saliva meets, like the magic saliva from a creature causing something to float. It just feels
well, okay.
weird.
Well, let's think it through more, I guess then. So this is so like a saliva. Their saliva would like have the ability to seep through rock and like flow through it like at a fast rate. And also while they're digging tunnels, they're probably producing a lot of saliva that way, which constantly allows it to flow. And it's just imbuing the rocks with this ability to like stay together, almost like solidifying them, but also maybe even making them more lightweight or something, and allowing them to float, react with the air itself to stay in place. Like, I don't know exactly how that would work, but it's better than island just floats there.
I feel like over time, like whatever doesn't get affected by the saliva, those rocks would just fall off the outer like layer of the islands.
Yeah, but it will also give people the ability, I don't know, to reshape the islands. Because they can take the rocks and they can take these creatures and start adding and building things, and then they can really cement their houses even with these creatures. So if they learn to like train or, I don't know, harvest from them, then they can really create cool civilizations. They can start melding their islands together to create a giant one if they wanted to, and giant cities. This obviously takes a lot of time, so, as the planet ages, their ability to use this creature changes as well. And then you have things like, you have the manatees skin indoor heating and things like that, and they're just learning to use these creatures and the magic they're producing to create a comfortable lifestyle for themselves.
Okay, so here's an idea. This is something that we really need to work out with, in terms of like the behavior of the manatees. But what if, over time, like I was saying, this island did crumble, but you had these creatures that held it together. But it did have the problem that it kept on crumbling. What if there was an outer ring far away from the center island, probably within sight, like you could see it, but it was like just within view. It was like off in the distance, and this ring. Oh, there's a landmass like ring floating in the sky, like everything else, just circling this center island. And no one lived over there.
Mm-hmm.
And they have no flying machines. They have no way of getting over there. We could say that maybe the manatees are unrideable.
Oh, they're definitely
Um,
unrideable. You'll burn yourself.
yeah, you'll burn yourself, and even if you somehow manage to get a manatee trained to where it wouldn't heat up or whatever, we could say that all the other manatees would push you off. Even if you befriended the manatee, the other manatees would see you as a threat to their friend and push you off.
Yeah, you're not riding a manatee. Just
Yeah. So there's no way of flying in this world, at least not that they've discovered.
mm-hmm.
But what if the manatees occasionally, what if they lived on this outer ring and occasionally brought over material from the outer ring to the center island?
Okay.
Now, why they would do that is the problem. Like, what would cause this behavior in a wild animal to just remove the rock over here? That's what I'm thinking. Because this way, the island can keep expanding. It can keep getting materials. It doesn't really fall apart. And that's another reason you have to worry about the population of the manatees. Is if it goes too low, your island starts to shrink.
Yeah.
So why would the manatees bring these?
So just to
over
like clear
here?
my thing, is this like a magnetic force that so when the rocks like fall off the island, they're actually attracted to these outer rings. So you're never actually losing your island. It's just going back to the outer rings.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and that's just
Yeah, it's got to go
it's
somewhere.
something in like the gravity of the planet that does that. And then the manatees just end up bringing it back. Yeah, I'm trying to think like why. That's a good question. Like, why would they want to bring items with them? Unless maybe it helps them with eating or something. Or like.
Oh, I just thought about something.
Yeah.
So these creatures that held the islands together with their saliva and stuff felt a little bit weird. But what if a solution to this was the center island was actually suspended there because the outer ring was pulling it in all directions outwards and horizontally. And so if a rock were to like break off of the island, it would very slowly over time drift towards the outer ring.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be fast and like at like falling speed, but it's like very slowly and it's slow enough that if you saw it you could grab it and just pull it back.
Yeah.
And this is why it's able to stay suspended in the air, is because it's just being pulled in all directions. It's not able to fall or go upward because of that.
Okay.
The outer ring is what's keeping it there. Now,
can we still have my my glue saliva creatures though?
I mean, we can. They just felt weird. I mean, what if we had the glue saliva creatures there that were primarily for construction, and their glue and their saliva could act as cement? But it's not. Yeah, they're not holding the entire island together.
I'm good with that, but I kind of like the idea of like a creature.
Yeah, I imagine them like little geckos. They just spew their
saliva. I was
saliva.
thinking more meerkat, but sure.
Meerkat. Either one I think could work. But like
a gecko,
we can go with meerkat. We'll go with meerkat.
Like a fuzz. How about just like a fuzzy gecko?
A fuzzy gecko.
Yeah. So
it's
got like the web. It's got the webbed feet that allows it to like stick to things, but maybe also the claws of a like the claws and like digging capability of the meerkat, and then it's got like the meerkat's fur, but it's got like the gecko tongue.
And maybe it's about the size of a gecko, or is it somewhere in between the size of a meerkat and a gecko?
Somewhere in between maybe. And then something like one of the reasons it produces the saliva is for itself, because you know how some some reptiles, they keep their eyes open constantly and they have to lick them.
Yeah.
And so, like, this thing that does glue is also really good protective for these geckos' eyes. So they're producing the saliva to protect their eyes. But people have discovered that you can use the saliva to actually as a glue. And they're also using it to, like, coat their tunnels so that way their tunnels don't collapse on them.
Oh, that's an interesting utilization.
Yeah. So they're using it to protect their eyes, they're using it to cement their tunnels, and people are realizing, oh, we can coat our houses with that and make really strong foundations.
Okay. I like that idea. Now, back to the manatees and this outer ring. Why are they bringing materials to the center island?
Oh, it's the great I mean, this seems like one of like the great mysteries in life where they do this thing and nobody knows until like the end of the book, and then it's all discovered.
Maybe if the center island is destroyed or disappears, the outer ring starts to break. Like the outer ring is holding the center island in place, but the center island is also holding the outer ring in place.
Or it's like it's acting as a buffer between the outer rings, so the outer rings don't just crash into each other. So it's like a magnetic wall.
Oh, there's more than one outer ring.
Yeah, but like the outer rings are all attracted to each other, and they would all like congeal into the center if there wasn't something inside the center planet that was keeping them inside, like on the outer rings. So there's like it's this weird magical magnetic contraption between the outer rings and the inner ring, where both are inner island, which are both are very much needed to keep the balance. So if one of them is off, the others come crashing in. But the manatees, I don't think would know that unless we have like a thing like they're just imbued in their creation to know that this is something they want to do, and they don't realize what they do. It's just part of their nature is to keep the balance, or maybe they have a strong sense of the magnetic balance between the two things.
I think they can just sense it. I think they just kind of sense it the same way that say a bird can sense the direction of north and south. Like they have a built-in internal compass. These manatees.
In which case, these manatees would also break the island at times, or different parts of it. So if there's like a magnetic shift and they feel that, and they realize, oh, this part of the island has to be destroyed in order to keep balance, they're gonna destroy it. Which I'm sure would greatly confuse people.
Yeah, that could very well be the case. I'm thinking that most of the time the island is going to be breaking itself, though. And the manatees just need to place more on the island that's fast enough to keep it the same size or make it bigger.
Yeah, but I think there might be points where the island would have to break. I just think story-wise that could be an interesting concept of all of a sudden the manatees are turning on this one section of the city and no one really knows why, and then it encourages them to study the creatures more deeply to figure out, oh, actually they're destroying it because we have to keep the world's balance.
Oh, what if the humans started moving the island over to a specific location that it's not supposed to be? Like they found a way to move the islands, whether it's like by attaching some ropes to it and hauling
Gecko
it, or
glue.
like creating.
It works.
What?
If they start really mass producing the gecko glue, they can start attaching the rocks themselves.
Yeah, they could start like building up their own islands, like where they used to build just bridges to these different islands where it was naturally forming and it was balanced. They are now forcing it to be shaped to their own desires and needs, and the manatees are saying, "Wait, no, you can't do that. It's gonna cause some problems." Maybe the manatees are even experiencing it on the outer ring, where maybe a portion of the outer ring is just cracking and shattering. Yeah. They're saying, "No, you're throwing off the balance. Got to go destroy the center ring so that we can fix the outer ring, or the center island,
exactly.
So we can go fix the outer ring."
And I don't know, maybe if like other creatures would also sense that and like start attacking it, or if it would just be the manatees.
I think it would just be the manatees, like the same way like there aren't really that many creatures that have a built-in internal compass. I think that the manatee is something unique to the manatees.
Yeah, so they would come in and they would destroy it, and then now the humans are being like, okay, we finally got this ability to do it ourselves, but their thought is we don't actually need the manatees' help in this aspect terribly much anymore. maybe we
Well, they
end it,
still need the
or I don't know.
manatees help because the manatees are the ones who are replenishing the rocks on the island in the
Yeah,
first place.
yeah. But now it's like a battle between like they want the freedom to build, the manatees want the world to stay together, but the people aren't realizing that, and it's an interesting story.
Yeah, that's definitely. I think this. Yeah, this is an interesting story about like people who are trying to. They're trying to like
Oh,
industrialize and innovate, and before where they did it, whether they were like working with nature, now they are fighting against nature, in what they believe to be the superior method of I guess you could say industrialization.
yeah. But
And they're completely ignorant and unaware of the damage that they are causing.
yeah. Until eventually they have to either, learn to accept the manatee's way or discover a way to create their own compass for the magnetic pole. It could be something as like they actually get like meteor showers for the first time, which is where the edge is coming in and just slamming into their islands and destroying things.
Oh, I
And they'd be like,
love
"Oh,
that
this never
idea.
happened before."
I
Yeah,
love
and
that
it's the
idea.
manatees are one. Yeah, so now they could even create their own compass, and then they can learn where the manatees want the build and how to build balanced, and then humans can start working with it and having more freedom to build, but within the boundaries that keep everything stable.
I like that. That is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Mass destruction is the quickest way for people to realize they messed up.
Okay,
Sometimes it's the only way.
so uh what else do we want to build with this? I feel like there was an area missing, but I can't think of what it was. Other than the
I don't
manatees
know.
needing a name.
I mean, so like water and rain. Is there rain, or is it just?
Um I think there could be rain.
How,
I
so
think
like,
that if
how
the
does
gas and the
water
clouds
stay?
got
Yeah, but
heavy
like
enough, it
how?
could still rain.
So does the water just like trapped in the gaseous bubble, and it occasionally makes it up to the islands and rains on them, and they can collect it? And I guess they have like
I mean, I was
maybe
thinking that
ponds
this is
and
just a
things as
very
well.
cloudy planet or world or whatever, and the clouds above just every once in a while will get too heavy and start raining.
Okay. Yeah, but I just assume like the water stays contained inside the. It's not like flying out of the planet.
No, it's not like
Is what I
leaving
figured.
the planet or anything. It's staying with it. It's staying nearby. I mean, you don't need,
Yeah,
again, you don't even
because
necessarily need to say like this is a full blown planet and everything, because the idea is this is a different world with different rules. It doesn't have a solar system necessarily. This world is just the center island, the outer rings, clouds, manatees.
yeah, but like
And
when rain falls, whether you like it or not, Isaac, just it has to go somewhere, and just I'm making sure like it seems like here the water is almost in the gas, always in the gaseous state almost. It occasionally falls, but it quickly turns back into the gaseous state. But on the islands, they're able to grab it and maintain it and like drink it and stuff.
yeah, I wouldn't be
But
surprised that like maybe the way that the world's gravity worked was that if something were to fall, like just be dropped, that you drop something off the island, it would look like it goes straight down, but eventually it actually its trajectory actually curves, and it finds its
yeah,
way heading towards the outer ring.
yeah. So probably how rain works is it falls, it starts finding its way to the outer ring, and because that's where the manatees live, that's an area that produces a lot more heat than the central area does. So it starts forming back into that gaseous state really fast, and then by the time it comes back to the main island, it's in the gas form, cools off enough for the rain to fall, and the cycles just continue.
Yes, and also
Yeah,
this would be a good place for the manatees to get a source of water. Like
yeah.
that rain might hit the outer ring
That might
as in a
that might
liquid
actually
state.
be the or it could
It
be
could
the
be.
reason why they have to come to the central area for water. Because the outer ring is just always so heated up because that's where they sleep and they live, and some of them, probably a lot of them stay. So they take turns getting water from the main area, um, where it's actually solidifies, and they can drink it without them evaporating it, as they do by the time it makes it to the outer edge. So
Yeah,
there's a
because I was
reason for
thinking
them
that
to
maybe
come into
like
the
the
center.
outer ring, the way I imagine it was it hits the outer ring, and when it hits the outer ring, it starts forming these pools of water. And the manatees, they're just warming up the ring. Like even the ground is hot, and
Yeah.
so that once it forms this pool of water, it's like a hot tub, and it just starts evaporating from the pool. And the manatees can still drink it and everything. It's just that it does. It's just constantly evaporating.
Yeah.
And I think that the main
As
reason
long
they're
as
going to the center
it's
island is
water.
just to maintain the balance.
There you go. That was my water question.
I mean, I think either system could work.
I kind of like yours better, I think, like visually. Because it's still raining in the central. Like, people, as long as people are able to get their water.
Yeah, they're definitely able to get their water.
And I say it's like pretty clean water because it's constantly going through that evaporation cycle, which is what purifies water.
Yeah.
So they probably have really clean water.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, you just set up a
As
rain
cleaner
barrel,
than
and
ours.
I'd say that they get rain fairly regularly. Like,
Yeah.
it's not constant,
It
but
almost feels kind. It's not quite tropical, but it's close.
yeah, they definitely don't. No, I wouldn't say that they experience droughts, like really
Yeah,
at all.
droughts is a
But they
foreign
also don't
concept to them.
experience much, in the way of too much rain.
I think it's really just really well balanced.
Yeah.
Just because there is this cycle and it doesn't change because there's. I mean, actually, I bet manatee population actually probably affects this. So if there's too few manatees, then they're gonna get if there's too few or too many manatees, they're gonna get like different types of drought. So if there's too few manatees, then the water isn't evaporating enough to get to them very well. So they're experiencing like a very dry drought. But if there's too many manatees, then it's so hot that the rain, it's not turning into rain, it's staying in that gaseous state. So now they just have a really humid, sticky drought. So there's that to keep in mind. So it does affect their water now because they're directly related to it.
Yeah, it really is. This entire world's weather and climate and
A
everything
balancing
all
game.
depends on how many manatees there are.
Yeah, it's a balance game. Like you have to balance all the creatures and the planet and your island, and everything has to be in perfect balance because if you mess it up, it just all falls apart.
Now, eventually, someone would have to find a way to this outer ring. Like, that's just
I say I bet the earliest is they just pack up their backpack, right? They cut off a piece of rock, they hop on it, and off they go.
Yep, that's what came to my mind, was they just sort of drift over there. Now, the problem is...
It's hot over in the outer edge.
Yeah, now the problem is they gotta
It gets
figure out
really
how
hot.
to get back.
They can't, really. That's the issue. People can go to the outer edge, but it's really hot there, so that would kill them eventually.
Yeah.
And also, there's no way back. And that's the thing.
I mean, you could fall off the island and eventually get thrown over to the outer
But
ring,
it'll
but I
bring
feel like
you-
that would kill you. I feel
Yeah,
like
and
the
eventually you
pressure, the
just
G-forces, the maybe the atmosphere is it becomes too thin, and plus the heat. Like, falling off the edge would
It's
kill
death.
you, and it would not be a pleasant death. It would not be instant or anything. You're just slowly experiencing a lot of different pain if you
Exactly.
fall off the edge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so going to the outer edge, you could do it. It's just, you don't come back, so it's never recommended.
But I feel like the main characters at some point need to find their way to the outer edge, because this is just an area of the world that you're going to want to explore. And then once they're over there, they can see the destruction that's being caused. This could be like one of the areas where they make the connection. Oh, us shifting the islands in unnatural ways causes the outer ring to become damaged, and that causes even more damage on the center island, and also causes the manatees to destroy stuff. Like, I feel like they
And
need
also,
to
like,
reach the outer ring at some point.
manatees, yeah. I guess at some point, but I think going to like a destroyed part of the outer ring would be different than going to like a pop. Because the issue with like surviving the outer ring, like visiting it, is the heat caused by a mass amount of manatees living there. But if you're going to a destroyed section, obviously the manatees aren't there as much because it's destroyed. They're not good. They're not stupid.
I
So
think you
being
could.
able to go there, the heat and pressure is not as
I think you
bad.
could survive the heat at the in the outer ring. It's just it's kind of like experiencing a heat wave. You just don't want to go there. It's an uncomfortable level of heat. It might be
It's
a
like
hundred
desert level
degrees,
heat. You
maybe.
get
It might be
dehydrated.
like it could be danger. You could say it's like it's dangerously high heat that you wouldn't normally want to be out in,
Yeah.
but you could survive it. Like I'd say like
Yeah.
probably between 80 and 100 degrees.
I was thinking like low
Yeah, and
100s.
maybe the ground is just extra hot because the manatees are just touching it constantly, and so
Yep.
that's why the ground heats up, and then that causes the evaporation. So if you're wearing shoes, you're probably fine. Um,
Depending on the type of shoe.
yeah, true. Um, but if you're wearing shoes that won't burn or melt or whatever, you're probably good. Uh, so maybe the air is cooler while the ground is warmer. So the air you could still say is about 80 degrees.
So almost like the ground is absorbing a lot of the heat.
Yes. And so
Okay.
you could even say that there's like just like natural minerals in there that are just that act sort of like heat sinks, and they just absorb all of this heat.
It's also like very humid.
Yeah, it's very humid, so it might be a
Like
little tough to
disgustingly
yeah, it might be a little
humid.
tough to breathe at times, but it's still breathable. Like again, you're not gonna die.
So yeah, you could
It's just not gonna be pleasant.
your adventurers can go to it, but it's not going to be like a I don't know, getting on the other side and seeing magical waterfalls and like, oh, pretty. It's gonna be they're gonna get over there and they're gonna be like, it's hot, it's humid, my feet burn, I hate it
Yeah.
here, I wanna go back.
But I feel like it should
That's
still have like an element of beauty to it. Like in some areas, like the destroyed areas are definitely going to look awful and everything. Perhaps there's certain locations where maybe the water primarily collects that are going to be more humid than the rest of it. And there's other areas that might be more like a mountainous region or like with pretty looking plants and trees. Because I feel like there needs to be some sort of level of something to show like the beauty of nature in this area, so that it's just to help it deliver a more of an emotional reaction to the reader or the viewer or whatever, that the audience, that this is something that should be preserved. Not that,
Protected.
and not because it's essential for life, but because things being pretty in nature just kind of makes us, it gets us an emotional reaction to say we want to preserve it. We like that thing. It looks nice. When you see trees and flowers, we
Yeah.
say, yeah, let's preserve it. Not because we need it to breathe, but because it looks nice and we want to keep it around. So I feel like at least some,
Yeah,
I
but
just
there's
feel like
also
for the emotional reasons, at least some parts of the outer ring
Yeah.
should look pretty. They should be,
I don't know, but I think there's also a statement to be made of it not being a pretty place. Like, of it just being a barren rockland where these manatee-like creatures live. Just because, like, we often associate only beautiful things are worth protecting, but that's not true. Like, you have to protect certain deserts and certain this and that, and there's a lot of ugly places that are extremely crucial for life. And I think it's something we don't think about a lot. So, like, these people come here and they're like, this is a horrible place to live. We shouldn't need to protect it. And they actually almost have an opposite reaction where, like, actually, let's go back and keep doing what we're doing. The manatees are stupid. But then bad things start happening and they have the meteors and then they go back to the barren wasteland and then they see the destroyed part and they see a really disgusting part with, like, maybe dead manatees being killed and crushed by these like crumbling rocks, and they know what the meteors do, and then they realize like, oh, this barren place that we thought was just a wasteland, which might be another reason why they never really felt the desire to explore it, because there's nothing there to explore. But they look at this and they're like, this barren wasteland that we thought had nothing of value except being an area where we could harvest stuff to add to our own mainland, which is beautiful and lush and everything we want it to be. And then this realization, like, but actually, this is extremely important. And this area also needs to be protected. And the best creatures who know how to do that are the manatees. And so we should learn and listen from them, and we should protect their home. We should protect this area.
Yeah, I think that could absolutely work as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's.
But again, I think that's a writer's preference.
Yeah, that's really more. That really more comes down to the writer's preference, the tone of the story that you want to tell, how the characters behave and their actions, and would the character be more interesting having the reaction of, oh, this is a beautiful land that must be preserved, and have that kind of emotional reaction, or would it be you don't see the beauty until you see the ugly? Like,
yeah.
Either one, I think, could work. Like, I think they both would work.
Like,
great. It all just depends on the writers.
Like, cause think about it, like, and there is like a beauty in like a vast emptiness. Like Antarctica is gorgeous. There's no denying that. And it's also, I think, I mean, especially if you want to make that direct connection between like a places like Antarctica and like polar ice caps melting or things like that, and related to this, and like make a direct connection for people, then having that waste and barren land would do that more so than like a lush, beautiful, because there is a beauty and an awe-inspiring of this mass, almost nothingness, but there's this life and there's this ecosystem, and it's so critical for the keeping of the planet that if we spend our entire life just focusing on pretty things and making beautiful things and destroy the supposedly ugliness by doing that, that's when we actually create real ugliness and things suffer because of it, including ourselves.
Yeah, I think this like entire concept, again, either way, I think like all of this would work really well for this scenario.
That was your philosophy dose of the day.
Philosophy's good.
Hope you enjoyed.
So what else do we want to build with this world, or do we think we're good?
To be honest, I think I'm content.
Yeah, I think that the main
I think it has like a cool story.
Okay, honestly, the only area that I would continue to world build, I think, would be like, basic things like structures of the houses, the bridges, like what materials they primarily use, what do they eat.
Food
those are all the sorts of things.
Wool sources.
These are all the sorts of things that you can add in as you're writing, and they aren't really as crucial. You can really put whatever aesthetic of town you want on these islands. But there is one other area that I would want to build in my writing, which is, again, this is the sort of like, if you're going with what I was saying with the beauty of nature, with you it would be a barren wasteland on the rings. But with me, because I like to go fantastical, I would build things like trees that have never been seen before, maybe trees that emit light, new fruits and vegetables, plants, different materials, perhaps waterfalls that flow upwards. Like, I would make it a fantastical land. Like the center islands are already fantastical, but the outer ring is supposed to be such a incredibly fantastical land with all sorts of crazy stuff that even the main characters who already live in a fantastical land are looking at it saying, "Wow." But that's me. That is what I would do.
Yeah. I would say, like, with that, you could still do that, but there is this thing that, in my world, it's easier to make sense why people have never traveled to the outer ring. In Isaac's version, it doesn't.
I mean, the reason you
don't
travel to the outer ring is because you have no way of getting there. You don't know what's over there. There's no beauty to
but like, if you see something magical and amazing on the other side,
you don't see it.
It's human nature.
It's just out of sight. Like, everybody, like, the rings are so far away that you can't make out what's on the rings. You just know they're there. Kind of like seeing a mountain off in the distance. They're just so far away that people don't know what's on there other than manatees. So you just know that's the land of the manatees. And it's too difficult a journey. Like, the only way that you would really get over there is by grabbing onto a rock or big boulder and just drifting over there for ages. It would take a very long time to reach there because it's moving so slow. You're looking at probably a couple weeks, and then you have no way of getting back. So no one's ever actually traveled over there for that reason.
Yeah.
So that's why nobody would go over there in my sort of scenario. We still haven't come up with a name for the
And mine,
manatees.
like, the edge could be closed. We're not going to. That's a comment section
No!
problem. We are just... Yep, we're gonna end it here.
We need to at least try.
I did. I call them the sun manatees.
They can't have manatee in there. Okay, so what do we got? They got a bunch of flippers. They look like manatees. What else?
Very many suns.
Yeah, they're glowing. They emit heat. They're gaseous creatures.
Their blood is a coolant. They cook themselves when they die.
I don't think that part would come into the name. Maybe something to do with their heating. Okay, I'm gonna go to thesaurus real quick.
Oh my gosh. I want to go to bed.
I'm sorry. Hold on. I hate this.
We're just gonna leave it for the comment section, or it just might remain an unnamed thing, and I'm personally okay with that.
Maybe they just refer to them as the creatures in this world, like the flyers.
I'm sure
the flyers.
Yeah. No, that's even worse than sun manatee. Alright guys, we're gonna end it here. We hope you have a wonderful week. We'll be back next week with another prompt and another world and another exciting time. So we will see you guys then. Bye.
The glow builders.
Bye.
The shining blubber.
No.
The flippering fun guys.
Bye. Ew, fly. Bye. They had nothing to do with fun guys.
No, they are just fun guys.
I'm ending.
Okay, bye.